Okay, so now Alex will present his work with OpenBao at GitLab. Sorry.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. I'm Alex Scheel. I'm a staff backend engineer at GitLab and chair of the OpenBao Technical Steering Committee. I'm here to talk about OpenBao and its usage at GitLab. First of all, you're probably wondering, what is OpenBao? OpenBao is a fork of HashiCorp Vault, remaining under the original Mozilla public license with open governance under the Linux Foundation's LF Edge subproject. It is an advanced secrets manager supporting 4 categories of features. We have static secrets provisioned by users directly and securely stored on KV mount. We have dynamic secrets automatically generated on demand to integrate with things like databases or cloud identity credentials. We have encryption services like a PKI engine or SSH certificates creation, and also KMS-like encryption as a service functionality. And lastly, we have sync management and visibility over all of these secrets, integrations with things like Kubernetes external secrets operator, cert manager, a custom templating engine to handle last mile delivery of secrets. And on top of this all is audit logs and tracking access to the system. And really this is the equivalent to applications what 1Password is for humans. It is a password manager for developers, for applications to connect with third-party systems. OpenBao is API-driven and highly flexible. It supports different authentication engines from OIDC and Kubernetes to LDAP and Kerberos that we've been talking about a lot. And we also, on the back end, then support creating or storing many types of identities. And it really functions as an identity brokerage. You take an input credential, you exchange it for any number of credentials on the back end. And the goal here is to trade off a little bit of operational risk. You have to run another complex service to lessen the security risk of compromise. You can enforce a healthy secrets posture in your organization, force them to use a secrets manager, audit rotation, ensure that it occurs, handle revocation of these credentials, and limit your organization's exposure in the event of a compromise and be able to track that across your org. While a complete history of OpenBao would take a little bit, there's a few important events that I want to highlight. HashiCorp started the project and named it Vault back in April of 2015, so there's been nearly a decade of work in the community. In August of 2023, HashiCorp announced that they'd be relicensing their products under the MariaDB open source non-OSI business source license, violating Freedom 0 to run it in any way you'd like. This triggered an early fork of Terraform, one of the other projects that they relicensed, into OpenTofu, our sister project also under the Linux Foundation. But this fork of Vault was started by IBM Software. It came a little later in November of that year and kept with the naming trend. Unlike OpenTofu, though, which was made up of many different member companies all working together on Terraform at the time, OpenBao was more of a grassroots, community-led effort. We've done 8 releases, 2 major releases, 6 security patches, shipped several bug fixes, core improvements, put together a technical steering committee, governance documents, all of that good stuff. In July, my company, GitLab, joined full-time and achieved voting status in the TSC in October this last year. And so, to my knowledge, I'm incredibly fortunate to be one of the few people employed to work on OpenBao full-time. One of the things you might be asking is, okay, it's another fork of another HashiCorp product. What's different? OpenBao remains in the spirit of the original project, but we've made a few changes to make it easier to maintain and contribute. We started with a reduced base, removing many components that was hard to support as an open source group with no formal funding. Anything proprietary, anything cloud, we simply did not have funds to deal with or time to debug. That also made some hard choices around storage backends. We only support Raft and Postgres support out of the original myriad of different storage backends. But this we hope to change as we get more time and funding and reintroduce especially the cloud, auth, and secret engines. But using that space, we've made some core technological improvements to the storage subsystem, adding paginated lists and transactions, which in turn allowed us to improve scalability. These were directly made possible by removing all of the storage backends but Raft and playing with that core until we got the things we needed. We hope to add an external storage API in the future for people who want to run on these third-party data centers, but without restricting us to maintain compatibility for all of them upstream. And, of course, different from HashiCorp, we set up an open organization with a clear contribution process and clear project leadership guidelines so that anyone can come to our community, know how to contribute, know how to get their patches landed, write an RFC, change the design, change the architecture, but still under the original Mozilla license. My personal vision for this is something like Kubernetes. Large companies, small companies, medium-sized companies can come, contribute patches. They can find a niche. There's space for people and careers to grow in this space. And so I think it's cool. You might be wondering, why GitLab? What is GitLab using OpenBao for? GitLab is a more complete DevSecOps platform than just a simple Git forge. Our customers really see a problem managing secrets in their CI/CD pipelines. They have two options that we support now at GitLab. You can use variables. They're encrypted. You can mark them as masked, but they have few controls over scopes of access. You can't easily limit certain secrets, limit certain variables to certain individuals, and there's a scale problem. Some customers have thousands upon thousands of variables, most of which aren't secrets. And the ideal kind of behavior between these two, between secrets and variables, differ in terms of management operations over them. So no one solution would really work for both while they're still lumped together. Instead, many customers turn to our third-party integrations, GCP, HashiCorp Vault, but the user experience isn't quite there. One typically has to work across several teams to enable OIDC ID authentication, so pipelines can authenticate into these secrets managers. They have to figure out the logistics of storing in their particular secret manager. And in all of this, GitLab plays a very minor role. All we do is provision an ID token and fetch a couple of secrets from a runner. And so we lack visibility into the hierarchy and the architecture that the customer has set up within their secrets manager, and so can't assist. So there's no easy-to-use dashboard that you can just go to configure your secrets within your project, and you can't really get there from where we are now. And there's also this political problem, of developers, having to work across all these teams to figure out who owns each portion. We hope to do something about that. So in late 2023, GitLab started on a design, building their own secrets manager from scratch. And in May of last year, my colleague Jocelyn wrote a blog post talking about how we're going to use OpenBao to solve this problem instead. OpenBao is a great choice for GitLab because we already support HashiCorp Vault. For premium and ultimate tier customers, the pipeline runner supports native integration to fetch the secrets automatically and inject them into the environment of the runner in the CI job. And they have a little nicer syntax around that versus manual CLI calls to Vault. But being a mature secrets manager solution already, OpenBao brings several useful properties. It's already been deployed at scale by various people. It has historically undergone audits and certifications useful for our enterprise customers. and is a self-contained service that we can isolate from the rest of our environment and run as a trusted entity. And so what we'd like to do is provide a single dashboard, which lets us aggregate information about secrets within this project and correlate them with the audit logs that OpenBao and GitLab produce, and handle that management and that logistical organization of the secrets on behalf of the user. At its core, our architecture is just like it was before. If somebody was running HashiCorp Vault, but we moved that into GitLab. It remains, a separate service that exists within our architecture, and eventually customers will be able to bring their own KMS provider to encrypt their own data. What is new are the interactions typically driven by a user via their browser to our Rails service to initiate these secret management operations. They do so via the API, which is embedded in our UI, to enforce initial authentication and accesses OpenBao in a very privileged way to manage policies and other things. Eventually, we'll add a per-user JWT so that users will directly write their secrets into OpenBao, and Rails will never see it at any time. But we get a very clean trust separation here between three key entities, between the pipelines, which talk to OpenBao directly to fetch secrets, between Rails, which talks to OpenBao in a more privileged manner, but which never reads secrets. And obviously, OpenBao is self-contained in the source of truth for all authorization to secrets and the actual storage of the secret. With Postgres support landing in OpenBao officially, we'll be using that as our backend database. And we hope to make improvements to it and hopefully allow us to do self-managed GitLab deployments, as well as GitLab dedicated and GitLab.com support. So, the key to integrating OpenBao is to be opinionated about your storage of secrets within it. We were just discussing this outside, but GitLab is out there at a booth right next to all the other databases, and we're kind of wondering why there. And it's because if you think about it, OpenBao is really a key value database. It's an API structure, with read, write, delete capabilities on certain paths. That's a thin interface, and sometimes to a KV store, or that dynamically creates credentials on the fly. And OpenBao authenticates. User authenticates to OpenBao using some engine. OpenBao issues a token. That token gets some mapping to ACL policies, and there's no concept of this long-term identity or ownership of a secret. It's a relatively API-driven, flat design. The core of the design then is to integrate with OpenBao to provide multitenancy and complete isolation of secrets via a trusted manager, which is GitLab Rails. And it's a familiar architecture to many of our customers who run HashiCorp Vault clusters of their own. Each tenant, usually an owner of a repository or organization, has a separate path area within OpenBao. Within the space, they have an authentication engine, a JWT auth, for authorizing pipelines access to secrets. Each project has its own KVB2 secrets engine, which stores the actual secrets. And it's stored in a structure format with custom metadata so that we know the scope of access and contextual information like descriptions and dates. Rails can, of course, read this metadata and provision ACL policies and JWT auth roles for all scopes when things change. When we add namespace support to OpenBao upstream, we'll provision each of these tenants in separate namespaces. And long-term, we wish to add support for per namespace seal mechanisms and encrypted key rings to provide greater data isolation, especially on GitLab.com. Within the core management space on the right, there's another authorization engine, the Rails JWT auth, used for this management interface. This gives Rails access to its own policy, but then also to set project and tenant policies within that ACL role collection. Authentication occurs via more of a property-based model. We already have OIDC ID tokens issued by GitLab to pipeline workers that have metadata like the owner of the repository, the branch, the environment, and so we translate these tokens via the JWT auth role into concrete ACL policies based upon these properties. The policies then contain the list of secrets that that environment, that scope, that property has access to. This lets us use OpenBao as the single source of truth for all secret management operations. There are no entries in the GitLab Rails database at all for secrets within OpenBao. And Rails is simply a management engine and a trusted token issuer and does not store much other data. From a developer's perspective, this looks like the following. You're going to use the UI to create a new secret. It's going to be a nice interface. You enter your name, your value of your secret, all that good stuff. You set some restrictions around the environment and scope. And then you'll save that. And then in your GitLab CI/CD pipeline configuration YAML file, you'll reference the GitLab Secrets Manager and the name that you set up on the left. And GitLab will handle all of the rest, the management of the access and the deployment. So at GitLab, we're really excited about working on OpenBao. If you are too, we welcome all contributors of any sort. We have our community calls linked online. We have a roadmap vision for where we want to take the project as a community. We have various working groups working on adding support for things like namespaces, PKCS 11 HSM modules, and horizontal scalability. If you like anything OpenBao related, please also share it on social media or with colleagues, because it's great to build the community. And if you're a customer of GitLab and you're interested in what we're doing, ask your account team about joining the beta program for our Secrets Manager. I'm happy to take questions now, or you can always find me at the GitLab booth afterwards, or we have stickers, or if you want a selfie with our little mascot, Bao Bao, we have a plushy version of that outside. So, thank you.
So the first question comes from the Matrix room.
Okay.
Will GitLab support masking secrets coming from OpenBao?
Masking secrets? Yes. Our existing Vault Enterprise integration, or HashiCorp Vault integration, supports masking secrets from third-party secrets managers, and so that will continue for our native Secrets Manager offering in OpenBao.
Okay, thank you. Any other question?
Hi. On which subscription tier will this be in GitLab? So will this be in the open source version?
That's a little up in the air right now. I suspect it will be at least premium, but that is still being worked on and decided.
Thank you.
For the time being, but if we get a lot of interest, I don't know. And the question was the question loud enough in the mic, or do I repeat?
Hello. When is general availability planned? General availability. Are there any plans at all yet?
Yes. Later this year is our rough timeline. The question was, is there a timeline for general availability of this at GitLab? later this year, hopefully. Not yet concrete.
So I guess that's all.
Very good.